All right, let's talk about ethics in professional sourcing. And look, I know what you're thinking, but this is not about some dusty old policy document that you signed on your first day and then forgot about. No, this is about the real-world, everyday decisions that can literally make or break your company's entire reputation.
So let's just jump right in with a question that probably hits close to home for a lot of us. What's the real price of a free lunch? Or those tickets to the big game, or even just a small holiday gift from a supplier. In the world of procurement, these things that seem so small and harmless, well, they can start to blur the lines and lead to some seriously costly messes.
And to see just how high that cost can get, we're going to look at a real-world situation. This isn't some textbook theory, okay? This is a scenario that plays out in one form or another in businesses all the time.
So here's the story. We have a buyer who starts accepting gifts from one of their suppliers. Maybe it started out small, totally innocent, but over time, it created this feeling of obligation. And what was the result? Well, that supplier started winning contracts, not because they were necessarily the best choice or the best value, but because of the influence those gifts had created. It is the absolute classic slippery slope.
Now, this mistake wasn't just a simple error in judgment. It was a clear violation of some pretty fundamental ethical principles. So let's take a minute and really break down what those principles are and define the exact lines that got crossed here.
First up, we've got a conflict of interest. The most important phrase here is potentially compromise. See, it doesn't mean a bad decision has already happened. It just means the whole situation is primed for one. In our case, the buyer's personal interest, keeping those nice gifts coming, directly compromised their professional duty to make a totally impartial choice for their company.
And that brings us right to the need for anti-bribery controls. The best way to think about these? They're the guardrails. They're the clear black and white policies and procedures that are put in place to prevent exactly what happened in our story. They take all the guesswork out of it by spelling out what's okay and what's absolutely not.
Okay, so we know the problem, we know the principles that were violated. The next logical question is, how do you actually fix it? Well, the answer really comes down to one thing: making the entire process transparent and accountable.
And here's what that looks like in practice. It's a simple but really powerful checklist for any procurement pro. First, you have to formally acknowledge that you've read and understood the gift policy. No excuses. Second, you document every single approval related to your supplier interactions. And third, you maintain a crystal clear audit trail. Believe me, this isn't about creating more paperwork. It's about creating a rock-solid record that proves your decisions were made for all the right reasons.
That checklist then fits perfectly into a structured workflow, just like this one. It's so straightforward. It kicks off with a request, it goes through a formal review, it gets a clear yes or no, and this is the most important part, it's all documented. A process like this protects everybody. It protects the employee, and it protects the company by making sure every single decision is transparent and totally defensible.
And now we get to the best part. What actually happens when you put these kinds of transparent fixes into place? Well, the results are, they're about so much more than just ticking a compliance box. This is about the real bottom line. And hey, the proof is right here. The results really do speak for themselves. This chart shows what happened to compliance incidents. Before the new policies and awareness campaigns were put in place, the number of incidents was way up here. But just look at what happens after. A huge, dramatic drop. This isn't just a hopeful guess. This is the real, measurable impact of creating a culture of ethical awareness.
Which brings us to the ultimate benefit of all of this. Of course, you avoid fines, you avoid legal headaches, sure. But what you're really doing is protecting your single most valuable asset, your reputation. Ethical procurement builds lasting, long-term trust with everyone, your suppliers, your customers, all of your stakeholders.
So we'll leave you with this one last question to chew on. If someone were to look at your team's records right now, today, what story would that audit trail tell? Is it a clear, undeniable record of integrity? Or are there maybe some gaps, some gray areas that could be read the wrong way? Because at the end of the day, that story is what truly defines your business.